Right now, without thinking about it, you just took a breath. You didn't decide to do it. Your body just did it. It's been doing it since the moment you were born. Roughly 20,000 times a day, every single day of your life. And almost every single one of those breaths has been wrong. Not catastrophically wrong, not wrong enough to kill you, but wrong in a way that has been quietly shaping your health, your mood, your focus, and even the structure of your face. And the strangest part? The problem isn't your lungs. It isn't your chest. It isn't even your nose. The problem is something nobody ever taught you, because everyone around you was making the same mistake. Here's where it starts. Take a breath right now. A normal one. Just breathe in the way you always do. Did your chest rise? If it did, you just demonstrated the most common breathing error on the planet. Chest breathing. The kind every anxious animal defaults to. The kind your body reserves for emergencies. The kind that, when you do it constantly, quietly tells your nervous system that something is very wrong. In 2010, a team at the University of Pavia, led by researcher Luciano Bernardi, published findings that showed slow, rhythmic, low chest breathing.
What scientists call diaphragmatic breathing produced measurable improvements in cardiovascular function, blood oxygen levels, and stress hormones within minutes. Not days, minutes. Your body already knows how to do this. You were born doing it correctly. Watch a sleeping baby. Their belly rises and falls, not their chest. That is the original factory setting. Deep, belly-led, diaphragmatic. Somewhere between infancy and adulthood, under the pressure of stress and school desks and looking confident and sitting up straight, you unlearned it. You swapped your natural operating system for a shallow, high-chest version that keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight system, lightly activated all the time. Think about what that means. You have been sending your brain a low-level distress signal with every breath. Now layer another problem on top of that. Your mouth. Somewhere along the way, you likely became a mouth breather. Not all the time, maybe. Perhaps only at night, perhaps only when you're focused, perhaps only at the gym. But here is what that small habit has been doing to you at a biological level. Your nose is not simply an air intake. It is a filter, a humidifier, a temperature regulator, and a nitric oxide production machine. Nitric oxide, a molecule discovered to be critical for human health by researchers Robert Furchtgott, Louis Ignarro, and Farid Murad, who jointly won the Nobel Prize in Physiology in 1998, is produced almost entirely in the nasal passages. When air flows through your nose, it picks up nitric oxide and carries it into your lungs, where it dilates blood vessels, improves oxygen delivery, and keeps your airways from constricting. When you breathe through your mouth, you bypass that entire system. You skip the filter, you skip the humidifier, you skip the nitric oxide, and you deliver cold, dry, unprocessed air straight into your lungs. Over years, this rewires your body. It changes how you sleep, it changes how much oxygen your tissues actually absorb, and according to years of research by dentist and researcher Weston A. Price, who studied indigenous populations across the globe in the 1930s and noticed something nobody had before, it physically changes the structure of your face. Price observed that populations who ate traditional diets and breathed through their noses consistently had wide, well-developed jaws, straight teeth, and open airways. The populations who had shifted to modern, soft food diets and developed mouth-breathing habits showed narrowed palates, crowded teeth, and receded chins. The difference was not genetic. The same family, across 2 generations, showed entirely different facial structures.
Based on how they chewed and breathed. Your face was shaped, in part, by how you breathed as a child. This is not fringe science. Orthodontists and orofacial myologists have been building on Price's observations for decades.
The field of orthotropics, developed by researcher John Mew, argues that nasal breathing and proper tongue posture, with the tongue resting flat against the roof of the mouth, not the floor, is the primary driver of healthy facial development. When the tongue rests low, the palate narrows. When the palate narrows, the airway narrows. When the airway narrows, you breathe through your mouth more. It becomes a loop. You are potentially living inside that loop right now. But here is the part that shifts everything. Carbon dioxide gets a bad reputation. You've been told your whole life that oxygen is good and carbon dioxide is waste. Breathe in the good, breathe out the bad. Simple, clean, obvious, and deeply misleading. Carbon dioxide is not merely a waste product. It is the trigger that tells your red blood cells to release oxygen to your tissues. This is called the Bohr effect, described by physiologist Christian Bohr in 1904. When carbon dioxide levels in your blood fall too low, which happens when you overbreathe, when you breathe too fast, when you take too many big sighing breaths, your red blood cells actually hold on to their oxygen more tightly. They carry it around, but they don't release it where your brain and muscles need it. So you could be breathing in plenty of oxygen and still not be getting enough of it to your tissues, simply because you've been exhaling too much carbon dioxide. This was the insight that drove researcher and breathing teacher Patrick Mckeown,
author of The Oxygen Advantage, to spend decades documenting how modern humans chronically overbreathe. Chronic overbreathing, too many breaths, too fast, too big, keeps carbon dioxide perpetually low, keeps blood vessels slightly constricted, and keeps the brain in a low-grade state of anxiety. It mimics, at a biochemical level, a mild panic attack. All day, every day. Now, you might be asking, how did this happen? Why would an animal as intelligent as a human forget how to breathe? The answer is stress. Not dramatic survival-level stress. The background hum of modern living. Deadlines, notifications, social comparison, financial pressure, the constant low-frequency alarm of being plugged in. Every stressor you experience triggers the same physiological response your ancestors used for genuine threats. Pupils dilate, heart rate rises, muscles tense, and breathing shifts upward, higher into the chest, faster, shallower, to feed the muscles that are about to run or fight. The problem is that your ancestors' stressors ended. They ran, they fought, the threat passed, the breath slowed. Your threats don't end. They just reload, and your breath never fully returns to baseline. Over time, shallow chest breathing becomes your default. Fast and high becomes normal. Your brain recalibrates. It accepts this pattern as your resting state. And then you go through your life, smart, capable, sometimes anxious for reasons you can't quite name, occasionally foggy, waking up tired even after 8 hours of sleep, never once suspecting that the problem is something you've been doing 20,000 times a day. The fix is not complicated. It is almost offensively simple. Breathe through your nose, always, at rest, during movement, as much of the night as possible. Let your belly rise first, not your chest. Feel your diaphragm, the dome-shaped muscle just below your lungs, push down and out as you inhale. Your chest should barely move. Breathe slower than you think you need to. The optimal breathing rate for a resting human, according to Bernardi's research, is approximately 6 breaths per minute. You are probably taking 12 to 18. Rest your tongue against the roof of your mouth, not the floor. The full surface of the tongue, flat, pressing gently upward. This is called mewing in popular culture, but the science behind it is real. It maintains the structural integrity of your airway. And when stress comes, when the notification pings, when the deadline looms, when the room feels too small, instead of taking a big, deep breath in, try a long, slow exhale. The exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest system. The inhale activates your sympathetic system. You already know which one you've been overdoing. None of this requires equipment,
None of this requires a subscription. It requires nothing except the willingness to pay attention to something you've been ignoring because it has always just worked well enough. But well enough is not the same as right. Tonight, when you take a breath without thinking about it, your body will do what it has always done.
The question is whether, for the first time in your life, you'll do it the way you were born to. Your brain just added something new, something it won't forget. That's what this channel is for, one hidden truth at a time. Subscribe so you never miss the next one. And if this made you think differently, drop it in the comments. See you in the next one.